Hello everyone, welcome to our stories. Wife admitted to having an ongoing affair with her boss, who's married with 2 kids, after only being married to me for 4 months. Hi all, I really appreciate this community and found it very helpful throughout this process, so I'd like to share a truncated version of my story. My ex-wife and I had been together for about 6 years before we got married last June of 2021. Getting married during a pandemic wasn't easy, but we had a wonderful wedding and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Fast forward a few months later and my wife became a completely different person. She opted to go to the office regularly while I continued to work from home. We both worked from home throughout the pandemic. She worked for a big firm, so the longer hours seemed to be par for the course, but she no longer wanted to spend quality time with me on the weekends, spending a lot of time with her horse, and began to downplay my achievements, claiming I was no longer a go-getter even though I was doing very well at work. People say that the first year of marriage can be hard, so I started taking my wife on regular date nights to reinvigorate our relationship, but she remained withdrawn and judgmental, which was a big blow to my self-esteem. I racked my brain thinking of what I might have done to make her act and feel this way, but I couldn't come up with anything plausible, so I started to lose sleep thinking I was possibly losing my wife to someone else. These were the worst months of my life because I couldn't believe you could lose the person I married so shortly after tying the knot, so I convinced myself it was the pressure of her job that was causing her to act this way, and I opted to suppress the negative thoughts to avoid exacerbating the issues we were having. She was actually gaslighting me the whole time and I just didn't know it. D-Day, I organized a romantic weekend by the beach, despite my suspicions, in order to try and revive what we had prior to our marriage. I thought this would renew our bond, but she became more brazen with her. I told her I loved her on our way to dinner, but she didn't reciprocate, and later that evening she had me take an NSFW photo of her in a bubble bath, and when I mentioned that it was a bit too scandalous for social media, she responded, "That's not what I'm using it for." We have been intimate throughout our marriage, but she refused to be intimate with me on this trip. That's when I finally confronted her on my suspicions and demanded she is honest with me. She denied everything for a while, but I convinced her I had proof I didn't, and she finally confessed. She admitted to sleeping with her boss on numerous occasions for months and that he was pressuring her to leave me. I went through a panic attack, which I never experienced before, and after finally calming down I realized what a fool she was for falling for his lies. I told her I was going to inform his wife and she responded, "She'll find out, but you won't be the one to tell her." That's when I knew my ex-wife had convinced herself she would run away with her boss. It was sick and a little evil, and I realized that my ex-wife was never whom I married. The real her was this manipulative and vile stranger. She changed my flight that night and sent me to my parents' house and told me she would mail me some boxes of my clothes. I contacted the boss's wife via social media as soon as I got to the airport, and that's when all hell broke loose. Long story short, the boss never planned on leaving his family, and in order to try and save his marriage, he distanced himself from my ex-wife as quickly as possible. Apparently, HR had to get involved and my ex-wife promptly gained a reputation around her office. She cried and pleaded with me to take her back, but I told her she made the decision and I was just completing her plan. Aftermath: success is the best revenge. Life has been good now that the dust has settled. I live near some of my closest friends, met a wonderful woman, and found a great job in CA. I'm learning to love myself again and have realized that my ex-wife's opinion of me during our marriage is not a reflection of who I am or my inherent value. I'm truly happier without her, and while I occasionally feel disheartened by what transpired, I feel blessed that this truth came to light before we had kids. My wife of 10 years was cheating on me for about 10 months. Want to give my full story here so that if anybody wants to give advice they know the whole story. I, 31, male, met my wife, 31, female, in 2007 in high school. Everything was good for about 2 years. Then she cheated on me with another female when we were 18 years, mostly emotional. When this happened, she became a person I never knew could be. She was really mean about it and laughed at my pain a lot. It was a terrible time in my life. About 2 months after that, she texted me one day to get back together and that she would never do that to me again. Next chapter in our life. She was remorseful and said she was sorry about what she did. So we moved on and got an apartment together, and not long after that she got pregnant with our first child, my daughter. Everything was good for about 2 to 3 years, then one of the most horrible days of my life happened. I found on her phone that she had been talking with 2 to 3 guys. Over the phone, and the messages sexual things. One guy she met in person and had a physical affair with one time. Pretty much when I found out, she panicked and went into begging mode. Begged me to stay with her and we never do it again. Again, I was stupid and accepted her back. I will say this time I had to think about my 2 to a 3-year-old daughter. I wanted us to stay a family and to work things out, and she seemed sorry about it and would never do it again. Now for the chapter in my life that is current. About a year after that, my wife got pregnant again with our second child, my son. For about 6 years everything was good and perfect in my eyes. But then my worst fears were met 2 weeks ago on August 29th, my D-Day. I found out my wife was having an emotional and physical affair with one of her co-workers for about 10 months. When I look back on these 10 months, I see there were signs everywhere. I hate that so much. There was a moment in March she tried to leave me after an argument we had that wasn't that big of a deal. She wouldn't tell me why at the time or anything like that. She just kept saying she didn't want to keep hurting me and that we needed to think about getting separated. I now know it was because she was with this other man. Because of our past, and when I would notice odd things she was doing, I would tell her, please just tell me if anything is going on so we can move on with our lives. She would then lie to my face saying everything was okay and that we would spend the rest of our lives together. Now I need to say the way I found out about this. I saw her messages with him and I saw how they talked to each other. My wife was way into this. Saying the most loving things possible to this other guy. Things she hasn't even said to me in a long time. Also, need to let y'all know that the man she was with was also married. So he was also having an affair. The thing is, when I read the messages I could tell that this guy was actually conflicted about doing what he was doing and didn't like the fact he was hurting his wife. Hardly saw my wife at all. It was mostly just making sure he was okay and not much about feeling sorry about doing these horrible things to me. I now know there was a lot of fighting between them because he was never ready to let his wife know about the things he has been doing. This upset my wife a lot, and over these 10 months even tried to stop the affair cause of it, but she always went back to him. It's sickening even typing this out right now. Okay, so everything is out of the bag on August 29th. So what happens? She wants a divorce, saying that we can't reconcile anything cause of our past and that she just keeps hurting me. So horrible few days for me. She was 100% on this. We even tell our kids. They were devastated because they believed that they were in a loving, happy family. So by Wednesday of that week, so 2 days later, his wife also finds out. This is also the day my wife is leaving the house and going to stay with a friend. She is easily packing everything up and not really worrying about anything, but this guy cause hasn't been saying much to her cause his wife just found out and they are talking. She goes to work that day wondering what's going to happen. He shows up and pretty much tells her that he doesn't know what's going to happen and he and his wife are still gonna be talking about things and what to do next. This of course upsets my wife and is mad that she has sacrificed everything for him and he won't make choice to be with her. She gets really upset about this and later tells me that she is crying hysterically. Meanwhile, I have already been doing this for the last 2 days, but that didn't upset her that much at all. There was a bit, but not this much. So you can probably guess what happens next. She calls me that Wednesday night to come and talk. At first, she is saying he lied to me this whole time, and why could he not just tell her the truth? I felt like, was there anything just to help her through the fact she couldn't be with him? Anyway, it eventually turned into that she realized she made the biggest mistake of her life and again went into begging mode. I will say this time it was really bad. She said she would do anything. Go to therapy and see what's wrong with her and why it keeps happening. She is being very remorseful and being completely honest about everything and trying really hard to make sure I'm always okay and to show me that she gonna be a different person and change for the better. She is willing to go to marriage counseling. Pretty much do everything she can to keep this relationship going. So I guess my question is, am I stupid for even thinking this woman will change? I can say this is the first time she is actually saying she wants to fix herself and wants to do everything to show she loves me and wants to spend the rest of our lives together. I also want to say I haven't been the most perfect husband ever. I have never in my life done what she has done. I want to get that out, but I have said some mean things to her, or maybe didn't show her enough attention, or might have been disrespectful. And I am a stay-at-home dad. And for the last thing I want to say is that the reason she gives me for doing all this is, and I don't now. She says she was always happy with me and there was nothing wrong with me at all and I was perfect. In my opinion, this is bullshit. There has to be a reason to do this kinda damage to our family. She just said it happened and if she could she would take it back. There is my story. I want to add here, at the moment we are trying to reconcile the marriage. It's only been 2 weeks and it's the hardest thing I have ever had to deal with. I keep getting thoughts about them being together and all the lies she has told to my face. It just sucks so freaking bad. Subscribe for more stories. Till then you can watch other stories that I have already uploaded.